I'm Julia Gillen from Lancaster University in England. I'm very grateful to Tara Callahan for giving me this opportunity to join in Anne's celebration today. I'm sorry I can't be there in person. Nobody has been more important to my career than Anne, and nobody could have been more generous. I'm going to share with you a few episodes of our time together. I'm very fortunate to be in the academic half of the day, but I know that many of you know that our collaboration has become personal as well as professional. Throughout our time working together, we've enjoyed much of the things we've done as well. Apart from working, we've done talking, walking, running around the streets of Toronto there looking for a poster printer, swimming and kayaking off Bowen Island, and much more. I didn't want to try to extricate the personal from the professional in this celebration. So I run with two academic themes from our work together, although dealing with them quite lightly. I know you can always read more if you want to, but it's wonderful to have this opportunity to talk in front of you, Anne, colleagues, Tara, friends and family.
As a PhD student, I began studying young children's telephone talk. I was interested in how very young children make the transition from talking face-to-face about the here and now to talking with a distance interlocutor who doesn't share the same environment. I was also fascinated by young children's pretense telephone calls, how they were hearing and then imitating one side of a telephone call, and how they were picking up the genre of emergency calls. I did an MA with the Open University while I had 3 very young children myself, and while the youngest was still a baby, met Nigel Hall at Manchester Metropolitan University and went on to do a PhD with him. He was known for his work on emergent literacy and had an approach that embraced socio-dramatic play. He encouraged me to find out who else was working on young children's telephone talk, and that is how I first emailed Anne. From the beginning, she was warm, supportive and encouraging. It was very generous of her to include me as a collaborator in her Shirk Grant The Child Phone project from 2002 to 2005. I found the very first paper we presented together from that project. You'll see that we were investigating telephone calls between Sam and his mother concerning events in Vancouver's Stanley Park. I've been fascinated to see that there is a strong theme in continuity with our latest published work. This paper, recently published in Language and Education on negotiating citizenship, concerns a young girl in Western Canada who returns home from her kindergarten and joins the family at a tea party. We sought to make connections between Suhani's experiences in the morning and those at home in the afternoon. The connections made by Suhani, as you can see, feature in the words and also in the actions. At the kindergarten, the teacher is introducing the hunter's motivation for interest in the beavers. They thought, no, they didn't think I'd like to eat the beaver, but they said, wow, that beaver has beautiful fur. The teacher makes a stroking motion over the fur of the beaver depicted in the book here. Later, during a lengthy monologue, Suhani explains about the hunters. That's why when men came, they saw the fur of the beavers. It's so pretty. They killed lots of beavers. As she talks, she makes a stroking motion, reminiscent of her teachers, as if a beaver's fur is in front of her, putting the imaginary beaver at the centre of the talk. In the paper, we also investigate what the adults do to facilitate Suhani making these connections and to make the experiences so rich. The teacher has many ways of orchestrating the talk and the whole experience effectively, and so, in their own ways, does the family. One of the grandfather's most effective strategies is to say, "Tell me more," and then pause. That pause is vital when talking to very young children on the phone as well, to create an opening for them. Back to Stanley Park. There are our personal connections not so invisible behind the scenes. In this paper, we're exploring at this point how Sam, a very young boy, 5 years old, tells his mother over the phone about his experience in Stanley Park with a popsicle stick. What we wanted to do was to trace the ways in which intersubjectivity was achieved, or to what extent, and we used a number of techniques to do this. One was discourse analysis. Another was recruiting a young research assistant to help trace the possible routes of the popsicle stick. And in other ways we made use of visual methods. So while Sam's wonderful mother, I have never met her but I know she is wonderful, discussed habitats, waterfalls and the sticks with him, Anne investigated in the field with the help of Gabbo Cameron. I was also very fortunate to enjoy the wonderful hospitality of Anne and Alan during 2 stays in Bowen Island at this time. In one I brought my whole family with me. The memories we have of that holiday are amongst the richest resources for our happy family reminiscences. Anne and I worked on young children's telephone talk for some time, especially with the wonderful Sam and Sophie Corpus. We wrote articles, chapters and conference papers. I recall a trip to Wolfville, which was fascinating to me, and then Halifax. I remember Anne explaining that a former colleague of hers in Wolfville used to study wolves there. When the reserve was moved away, he had to change to the psychology of humans. I regret I don't remember so much about Herb now, but I do recall how impressed I was at the time by him and his hospitable and interesting family. It was one of so many, many times when I witnessed for myself the warmth and delight that former students and colleagues of Anne's showed when she met up with them again.
But I'll take a step back to when we first met in person. It was in Toronto Airport, and Sombat Tapanya was there, I recall. But of course I can't take you through everything and everywhere that we've been. I do want to mention though that owing to Anne, I was introduced to the Shirk Research Development Initiative led by Tara Callahan there. It was called an interdisciplinary examination of the role of culture on human development, an international project on the development of research methodologies. It was led by Tara Callahan there and involved me spending a week in Nova Scotia with Tara, Anne, Julia Pinto, Sombat Tapanya and other colleagues.
The people I met in Nova Scotia included the memorable Jean Briggs, who, by the way, has written 2 of the best books in early childhood I've ever read. So I take the opportunity to slip in these somewhat neglected books by a scholar I was privileged to meet there. But while I remember Jean Briggs, I also recall a life lesson from Tara Callahan. Tara told me that frequently at weekends she was driving her son to athletics meetings. Since towns in Nova Scotia are so spread out, this often meant a very long drive from Antigonish. Obviously that's not the best thing for an academic who spends so long in the week sitting down at the computer, to compound it by long car journeys at the weekends. So Tara told me she decided to join the races and, as she put it, take away from somebody the burden of coming last. I found that very inspirational since, and so have many people that I've told that to. On our way to the west coast of Canada, Anne and I worked on the methodology and first project that became A Day in the Life. I gave the first paper from our work at the European Early Childhood Education Research Association conference in Glasgow in 2003. By another nice parallel, I'm going back to that association's conference this year for research meeting with the association's Digital Literacies Special Interest Group. I'm now leading another Day in the Life research project in 6 countries in Europe. My most recent conference presentation was in Cardiff last month. I can again see the continuities and connections between the earlier work and the current. The picture on the right is from a family we're working with currently, a family from Malaysia living in England. Lily, a pseudonym of course, is enjoying a secure and stimulating early childhood, enriched by her toys that include this tablet. It assists her to watch videos through which she pursues her current ruling passion, colours.
You might have wondered why the citations I've given so far have begun Gillen rather than Cameron. I'm sure, as you can guess, that's owing to Anne's generosity.
The original Day in the Life project was carried out in 6 countries. Our collaborators included Roger Hancock, Sombat Tapanya, Juliana Pinto, Beatrice Corti-Gamanossi, Susan Young, Aisha Taleongon and Leslie Cameron, as well as many research assistants acknowledged in the preface to our book. I must also mention by name Nora Didkowski, who we originally met back at that first meeting organised by Tara. As I mentioned, the Day in the Life methodology has attracted many project iterations. I've worked with Anne on the first book above. We then benefited hugely from support and new content by Juliana Pinto and Monica Toselli to bring out an Italian edition. I regret I haven't the time to do justice to the many subsequent Day in the Life projects and studies that Anne has led or been involved in that I wasn't personally involved with. I do make an effort to keep up to date a Day in the Life programme website, so you can see by now there are hundreds of outputs, all inspired by Anne and continuously spreading. I know that soon a book will be published in Brazil, that Anne's supporting with her usual tremendous energies. We've enjoyed some wonderful times in the UK too. I remember particularly some days in which Anne and I sat in our attic reviewing data. I remember a week when Leslie and her family also stayed with us, as well as trips elsewhere in the UK and elsewhere. Most recently, Anne and I spent some wonderful hours in Paris with my husband Jim, and before that we met Anne and Alan in London and Brighton. It's that Brighton Visual Methods conference that I'll remember here finally, in part because unlike most conferences I have a few photos. From left to right along the bottom, you can see Monica, Sari from Finland, Nuala and Roger, then Anne and myself.
I've very much enjoyed putting this video together. It's wholly inadequate as a description of Anne's work, or the fields that we've worked on together. We've taken some risks, had some failures as well as successes. Occasionally I've had to say, I'm just too busy at the moment. And then after a while she's called me and said, take a look at this data, or think about this, and I've again been enraptured by the ideas that she's put forward. I'm delighted to have worked with her and still to be working with her. Finally, thank you so much for this opportunity to contribute today. I wish you, Anne, and everybody there great success in your continuing research.